All right, Detroit Lions fans. We got some breaking news that just came out of the Detroit Lions camp. And that is Hendon Hooker is now activated to the 53-man roster. If I had a sound bite, it would probably sound something like, it's Hooker time, but I don't. So that's just what you're going to get. I apologize. But that's the breaking news for today. And what does it mean? It means that the Detroit Lions have stuck by their word and that they were going to make sure that Hendon Hooker made it to the 53-man roster this season, so they did not toll his contract. And I could go into everything about the tolling, but essentially what it means is his first year kind of didn't count as what it should have for contract purposes, but he still got paid. And I think that this is just the right move, right? We know that Teddy Bridgewater is retiring next season, so he won't be back. At least that's what we know of right now. And for Hendon Hooker to now get the ability to potentially play in some late game scenarios would be paramount to his progress, and for him to be able to get a chance to show us what he has. I think a lot of us are excited about Hendon Hooker. I know that I am. If you go back to April's videos, pre-draft show, draft show, even the first videos that I did talking mock drafts, I definitely wanted Hendon Hooker on this team. He was the best quarterback in my eyes out of this draft, kind of neck and neck with Stroud. But I thought that if Hendon Hooker didn't get injured, he probably would have been a top 5 draft pick in this 2023 draft. And there's a lot that's left on the table for Hendon to prove. He's got to come back from this injury, and we'll see what he's got. There was some conversation this week, and last week, and the week before that, and I just did a video about Jared Goff. But a lot of fans were clamoring for Hendon Hooker to get put in the game over Jared Goff because he had a rash of turnovers and from pressure and just looked god awful for a couple of weeks. But it happens. And then you see what Jared Goff did this past weekend. So by no means does this mean that Hendon Hooker is now coming for Jared Goff's job throughout the rest of this season. It's just not going to happen. So expect our new QB3, who's soon to be QB2, to possibly get some game action. I said this the other day, and I hope the Lions do this. If they get an opportunity, I really hope that they trot Bridgewater out in the last game in Week 18 and let him take a bow for the fans, because this guy's been nothing but a true pro for the Detroit Lions organization and for the guys in the locker room. He's been a heck of a mentor to a lot of guys. Initially, he was brought in. There was a lot of talk about him being a great mentor to Jameson Williams. And we'll never know, just how far or how deep, these connections have been made. But the Lions have done some good things. And this was one of them. One with Bridgewater, and now another one with Hendon Hooker, and sticking by their word that they would activate him by the end of the season so that his first season would count. So there's the breaking news. If you're just now joining, Hendon Hooker has now been activated to the 53-man roster. As of about 10, 12 minutes ago, it was put out by the Detroit Lions Twitter feed. There was a couple of others that also put it out. And shout out to Derek over at Lions Syndicate for giving me the call on it too. I was doing some grocery shopping and just got home to make it in time. So it's still early, right? We don't know what Hendon has. Like I said earlier, if you just joined in, it's doubtful that he's going to get in, any meaningful time this season. And we can only hope and pray that Jared Goff stays upright for the next 3 games and into the postseason. But we know now that Hendon is back. I mean, he's healthy enough to be on the 53-man roster, and it takes a lot to get there. In a coordinating move, that's what I need to find out right now. There was a coordinating move of someone that was let go. Let me get that info, and I'm going to try to throw it up on the screen too. Let's see here. So the Detroit Lions announced Tuesday that rookie quarterback Hendon Hooker has been added to the active roster. In a corresponding move, the Lions waived kicker Riley Patterson. So I think that now makes the decision that Michael Badgley is back in as our kicker. Man, it's been a weird musical chairs with the Detroit Lions and kickers. Like, can we just like go out and finally draft somebody? Like, I'm all for them finally drafting somebody. Not spending a top 5 pick or something like that, like a first 5 rounds, but 6 or 7, sure. So yeah, that's the corresponding move. Hendon Hooker's on the roster, and there's an article here by Sports Illustrated that also talks about that exact quote that I just mentioned. Coach Dan Campbell said Monday that the team planned to activate Hooker at the conclusion of the 21-day window to return to practice, which ended on Wednesday. So it actually ends tomorrow. Hooker has been on the NFI list since the conclusion of training camp while recovering from his torn ACL that he suffered in November of 2022 while playing college football. He was expected to serve as the team's third option at quarterback behind Jared Goff and Teddy Bridgewater, who, like I just said, his 2023 season will be his last before retiring. The Lions, as we all know, selected Hooker in the 3rd round of the number 68th overall in the 2023 NFL draft out of Tennessee. Prior to his injury, though, he was having an exceptional final season with 3,135 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He was placed on reserve NFI list at the conclusion of training camp while rehabbing. The rookie was permitted to participate in meetings, but he was never able to practice with the team. And that's something that people need to understand. It's, you're clamoring for a rookie to get into the game, but he has not practiced with this team. He's only been in practices the last 2 weeks. He basically got to watch training camp. He gets to go through some drills and some things like that. But once the season is rolling, everything changes. All the rules change. Think in terms of Jamison Williams. When he was suspended, everyone thinks, okay, he just can't play in the game. No, he couldn't be anywhere near the facility. So there's major rules that happen within the NFL for a reason, and it's all about competition. But this report goes on by SI.com that as a result, the Lions made the decision to activate him so the coaching staff could provide more opportunities for Hooker to develop and gain reps in practice. He began practicing on November 29th in the days leading up to the Detroit's Week 13 game against New Orleans. That was his first day of real practice. And you got to remember, too, that during the week, during the season, these practices are like glorified walkthroughs. You might get one day in pads or half pads, and they're not going full speed. If I remember correctly, if it's a Sunday game, that's usually a Wednesday that they might go through some padded practices. I think Tuesday is kind of more of you just getting back into it. I could be wrong. And, Dan Campbell probably switches up the schedule all the time to keep these guys guessing. The Lions are facing a key decision at quarterback at the conclusion of this season. I don't agree with that because Jared Goff is still under contract. But the team will likely evaluate whether or not to give him an extension prior to 2024's season. They're talking about Jared Goff. This article is by Christian Boer, who is a sports journalist covering the Detroit Lions for SI.com. So thank you, Christian, for putting this together. And, getting that thing out 16 minutes ago. So right as the news dropped. So there you go. We got our rookie. I can't wait to see him personally. I'm excited about him. I really am. But really the claps are for Hendon, but really the Detroit Lions here. They've done an excellent job maintaining face, but not only face by doing the right things for Hendon Hooker and making sure that they didn't toll his first season. And let me pull up the definition on that so that you guys know what that means. This is the first time I heard it was this season. I've never heard of this before. But if the contract is tolled, for example, if a player retires with 2 years remaining on his contract and is placed on the reserved retired list, then if he chooses to unretire, the player's rights are still held by the team to the extent of the remaining 2 years of the contract. So in essence, for Hendon Hooker, if he went through this full season on NFI, the Lions still retained his rights for an extra year post his 4th year on his contract. Doesn't mean that he had to play with the team. They would have just held his rights. I think that's the glorified version that I understand from this. It's not that they would have been able to have him on the team for another season unsigned. It's just they held his rights. So if a team wanted him, they would have had to have traded for him, even though he wasn't under contract necessarily. And I mean that loosely. So there's your news. Hendon Hooker is now part of the Detroit Lions 53-man roster. We are headed to week 16, and we'll see what happens next. I thank you all for joining me today on this live edition of Rocked On Detroit Lions. Go One Pride. Go Detroit Lions. We'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.